Hello students, I am RG ma'am is with you to start the new chapter, that is control and coordination. This is the chapter number 2 of your class 10th, and students, till now we have read about the first chapter, that is about life processes. In life processes we learned that how all the processes of our life are going on in a very well organized manner inside a human body as well as in plants as well. So students, in this chapter we are going to correlate all these things, and also we are going to learn that how the control and coordination takes place inside a particular plant as well as in human body. This chapter is all about the control and coordination. Control means how the involuntary as well as the voluntary activities are being controlled by a particular plant as well as animal, and we are going to talk about that how the coordination takes place by the help of hormones, by the help of all the body parts of a plant as well as animal, how the things are being regulated because of the presence of external stimulus and internal stimulus as well. Okay students, so we are going to learn that how the coordination of all the hormones, our body parts, our cells takes place inside a particular human body. So this chapter is totally important for you all, as questions can come in your NTSC examination, and from the 10th class board point of view, this chapter is really important. So in this chapter we are going to learn many things. So students, first we are going to see the contents of today's lecture. So what are the contents of the today's lecture? So first is the basic introduction. So I am going to tell you about many basic terms which are going to be understood through this chapter, and the things which are related to us. That is, you do not know that how we respond to a stimuli, how the neurons are conducting the nerve impulses inside our body. Okay students, so we are going to go through some basic important terms which are really important for this chapter. And secondly, we are going to talk about the coordination in plants, how coordination in plants takes place, what are the things that takes place inside the plants, the tropism, the tropic movements, the nastic movements, which we are going to talk about in this particular chapter. So this chapter is really important for you all students, because in this chapter you are going to go through all the things in which you are going to learn about that how all the coordination takes place inside a particular plant body and an animal body. Okay, now students, we are going to learn about through a very small video over here. I will run the video and explain it to you that how from a small seed a large plant is formed, and then from a large plant a large woody plant forms, how the cell division takes place. You have learned these kind of things in the first chapter very well, that how life processes are going on, respiration, transpiration, each and everything are being carried out by the different type of vascular tissues like xylem and phloem, and also the stomatal cells, the cuticular cells are helping a particular plant to transpirate, to respirate. So all the things are related to each other, but we have to study things step wise so that we do not forget. Okay student, so through this video I am going to tell you about many things which is related to this chapter. So before starting the chapter, just we are taking an overview so that we understand each and everything of this chapter. So let's start the video. Now students, we are going to learn this thing, that how a particular seed turns into a plant, and then a small sapling plant turns into a small big tree. So how this is happening, what are the things that are taking place, how this has been coordinated, how a baby grows into an adult. Actually you say this thing that there is an infant, we need to take care of that infant. Now the baby grows, after some years you see that all the body parts grows, the bones grows, even the muscles grow. So why this is happening? So a particular child becomes an adult and the phases of the life goes on. First is the juvenile stage which comes, then is the adolescent stage, that is between the juvenile and the adult stage, and lastly the adult stage come of a particular human being. So actually what happens, the movements are correlated. What happens students, that These movements would not happen when growth is stopped. Okay, if you see an animal also, now animal is just running. So why is it running? You can see children playing inside the park. So how the things are being coordinated? Our nervous system is allowed us to do all these things. You can see cows are grazing inside the fields. So why they are grazing? What is the reason behind that? Are they feeling hunger? Why they are feeling hunger? Okay, so what are the things behind it? What are the kind of hormones which are present inside a plant body and even an animal body which are helping them to survive and completing their basic needs? So basic thing that is behind it is nervous system. Okay, now the nervous system is the basic system which is relating all the parts of the body. How? I am taking now an example over here. If a person touches a hot vessel, then what happens? They just put the hand away from it. Now why they are putting the hand away from it? Because it is a spontaneous action which is taking place inside a particular human body. Our nerve impulses which are embedded under the skin provides the impulses to our brain, sends the messages to our brain. Then our brain responds to it and we just pull away our hand from it. So this is how the nervous system is regulating all the activities inside a particular human body. Now, if you see our body parts, so main body parts are ear, nose, skin, our eyes and tongues. These are the sensory organs which are located inside a particular human body that are regulating the coordination inside a particular human body. Now, we are going to take an overview of the structure of neuron. In life processes also we have learned about the structure of neuron. But let us take a look over again. Okay, so that we do not forget it. So what happens, students? Actually the dendrites, nucleus and the main part of the neuron is that. Now dendrites are just receiving the signals from the other neuron and then transferring it to the neurotransmitter, creating the synapses. Now what happens? On the axons you can see there are sodium and potassium pumps which are present over there. These sodium and potassium pumps helps to regulate the cycle which is going on. Actually what happens if you are facing any kind of sensory or sensations? So what happens? These sensations are being carried out throughout your body. If you are feeling the thunder, if you are feeling hot, so what happens? All these sensations are carried out by the neurons throughout your body. Actually, they are creating the synapses. What happens actually? The dendrites are receiving the signals. Then they are transporting it through the neurotransmitters, creating a synapse between the two neurons. Now what happens? These messages are transferred from one neuron to another, then from another neuron to another. So this is how the synapse is being created inside a particular human body. And if any kind of message is given to the brain, then brain just quickly reacts towards that messages. So as I told you, I gave you an example of thunder, or if you are feeling hot, or if you are feeling anything like if you are feeling emotional towards someone. Okay, the feelings inside our body is regulated throughout by our nervous system. Now I want to take an example of reflex action, which is totally coordinated by the nervous system of a human body. Now how does it take place? Okay, now if we are seeing that if you enter inside your house and if your fingers comes under the door, so what happens? You just feel the pain, okay, inside your fingers. Now why are you feeling the pain, students? Because the pain receptors are present under your skin, okay, in your hands. So what happens? They just transmit the signals to the sensory muscles. Okay, now the sensory nerves carries these signals towards the relay neuron. Now these relay neuron creates the synapse and then they transfers the messages towards the muscular neurons which are present inside a particular human body. So you can see here that these pain receptors stimulated, signals sent along the sensory neuron. Now these send to the motor neuron and then motor neuron responds and we just feel the pain and we just keep away our hand from the door. Okay, so this is what about the coordination. Our body is responding to each and every mechanism which is going throughout our daily life. Now, if I take an example of Mimosa pudica, this is a touch me not plant. Now, when we touch these plants, okay, when we put fingers towards these plants, what happens? They get shrink. Okay, now why they get shrink? Because they are responding to the stimulus which they are receiving. So this is how all the control and coordination takes place inside the particular plants and even the human body. But in this part we are going to learn about only plants. In the next part we are going to learn about how that coordination takes place inside humans. So this is the first lecture, students, and we are going to start with the basic introduction of this chapter. Okay, so I will tell you about the basic terms of this chapter. So first, the changes in the environment to which the organism respond and react are known as what? Stimuli. Okay, now for taking an example, if there is a well potted plant and you keep it towards sunlight, then what will happen? It will move to its stems towards the sunlight because it is getting stimulus from the sunlight. Okay, so this is what stimuli. Okay, now next point, the response of organisms to stimulus is usually in the form of some movements of their body parts. So what happens? Some body parts receives the movements and the stimulus is carried on. Means if they are receiving the stimulus, then there is the movement. Okay, now next point, coordination is the working together of various organs in a systematic manner so as to produce a proper reaction to the stimulus. Now when I am getting a stimulus, okay, I am responding towards it. Okay, so this is coordination. Now what is coordination? Imagine I am touching a hot vessel. Now when I am touching a hot vessel, I will pull back my hand within a second. Why is it so? It is coordination. Okay, why? I am getting the stimulus that it is hot. My brain is working well. The sensory neuron will get the messages and will tell the brain to remove the hand, and then I am removing my hand. So this is a within second mechanism which is happening. So this is known as what? Coordination. Next, all living organisms show sensitivity to changes in the environment. Now all living organisms shows, even it is a plant, invertebrates or vertebrates. So we are also showing, okay, in the month of May, June, July, we show the response to the environment as we receive the hot signals from the environment. Actually the temperature is raising up. But when the temperature is down in the season of November, December and January, we wear woolen clothes. Why we do so? Because we are feeling the thunder. Okay, students. Now students, we are going to understand that what is the stimulus. Actually we have learned about stimulus. Now stimulus are of two types. Okay, so they are of two types. First is the external stimulus. So stimuli due to environmental factors, example heat, light and water, are known as what? External stimulus. These are all the external factors like heat, light and water. Okay. Now if we talk about internal stimulus, then it occurs within the organism. It may due to hormones, acids and enzymes. So if the stimulus is occurring within the human body because of the enzyme, because of the hormones, because of the acid present in our body, then it is known as what? Internal stimulus. Okay. Now the working of one system is coordinated with that of other system. Example, during eating our body performs several kind of coordinated activities. Now when we eat something, our body is coordinated in such a way that the food is being proper digested even, and then it is chewed. Now how this happens? Actually our nose plays the main important role inside it. Okay, when your mother is cooking the delicious aromatic food, then you are just grabbing the smell of it, and because of the smell you are getting attracted toward that delicious food. Now what happens? See the mechanism. The nose differentiates the smell of the food and hence serve as the organ of ingestion. Now what happens if your mother is preparing momos or sandwiches? So what happens? You go to the kitchen, pick up one piece and then just put it inside your mouth. So your nose is playing the feeling of smell and your hand is playing the work of ingestion. Now the alimentary canal and glands help in the digestion of food. Thus various organs performs coordinated activities. Now when you are ingesting the food, first the saliva is secreted from the mouth, converting all the starch material into what? all the starch material into glucose, and then it is being synthesized inside our body through the digestive system. Okay students. Now next point, control and coordination also helps to maintain a steady state of stability and steady state within an organism in constantly changing environment. So steady state means a constant state which is maintained by a particular human being or a plant with responding to the environment. Next, the mechanism of maintaining internal steady state is known as what? Homeostasis, which occurs inside a particular human being, and the main organ which is helping inside it is our ear. Ear is maintaining the homeostasis of a particular human being. Okay. The vital activities of an organism are controlled by endocrine system and nervous system. Actually, nervous system and endocrine system both are playing a greater role in maintaining the coordination inside a particular human being. Okay, there are two types of coordinations, nervous and hormonal coordination. So you have to remember this thing. This is very important. There are two types of coordination, nervous coordination, which is occurring inside a particular human body by the nerve cells, and second one is the hormonal coordination, in which the hormones are playing the greater role. Okay. Now, in animals, both hormones and neurons, structural and functional unit of the nervous system, are involved in regulating and coordinating the various vital activities. So the various vital activities are coordinated by the nervous as well as the hormonal system of a particular human body. So you have to remember this thing, student, that the two systems are playing the important role for coordinating a particular human body. Now you can see here, in plants only chemicals, phytohormones coordination is present. So in plants, nervous system is absent. Remember this thing. No neuron is present inside plant. It is present only and only in a human body. Okay, means an animal body. Okay. Now, if we talk about plants, no neural system is present over there. Only and only hormonal system is present, which are counted inside the phytohormones. Okay, students. Now students, we are going to start the first part of this chapter, that is coordination in plants. How coordination takes place inside plants. So, plants do not have a nervous system as in animals. Plants use only hormones for producing reaction to the external stimulus. So, if there is an external stimulus like light, heat, water, then these hormones play a greater role to the external stimuli to respond. Means they do not have a proper nervous system developed. So means they do not have a proper nervous system even. Okay, only hormonal system is present inside the plants that respond towards the stimuli. Okay, now thus plants react to stimuli in a very limited way. Okay, in a very limited way they respond to the stimuli. Okay, now I have taken an example of a tree, or a, you can say a shoot over here. So what happens, students, when there is light? Okay, so plant responds towards light. So what happens when this shoot is growing? So it responds towards the light, means it is in the direction of the light. Where the light goes, the shoot will move towards that light. Okay, students. So this is how the stimulus is responded by the plants. Now next, if we talk about the movement in plants, how the movement in the plants takes place. The plants are fixed at place with their roots in the ground, so they cannot move from one place to another. So you have seen this thing, that plants cannot perform the function of locomotion. Okay, locomotion is just performed by an animal, not by plants. Okay, students, they just perform the movements. They do not perform the locomotion. Locomotion means transportation from one place towards another. Okay. That is, plants do not show locomotion, movement of the entire body. Movements of the individual parts or the organs of the plants like shoot, roots and leaves are seen clearly. Okay, are possible when they are subjected to some external stimuli like light, force of gravity, chemical substances, water and touch. So towards light, force of gravity, or we can say the chemical substances, water and even touch. Okay. These are the stimuli which are provided to the plant and they respond towards it. Okay. They do not show the locomotion. They just show only the movement of roots or shoot or stems or leaves. Okay. Now, the plant movements are made in response to external stimuli fall in two main categories. So, there are two main categories towards which the plant shows the response. Okay, so what are the two main categories? First is the tropism and second one is the nastic movement. So these are the two types of movements which are really important for a plant to show the response towards this stimuli. So first one is the tropical movements which we are going to learn about, and second one is the nastic movement. So let us study about the first one, that is tropism. So tropism means what? Tropic movement. A growth movement of a plant part in response to external stimulus, in which the direction of the stimulus determines the direction of response, is known as what? Tropism. So what happens when there is a direction of the stimuli, the direction of the response is towards that stimuli, is known as what? Tropism. Now tropism is directional movement of the part of the plant caused by its growth. So what happens when the part of the plant is growing? They respond to the stimuli and the growth is towards the stimuli. Okay students? Now, if the growth or movement of a plant is towards the stimulus, it is called as what? Positive tropism. So positive tropism means if the growth is towards the stimulus. Now, if we see the opposite of it, then we see that if the growth or movement of a plant is away from the stimulus, then it is called as what? The negative tropism. Okay, so what is negative tropism? When it is against it. Okay, if anything is going against it, then you use the term negative over there. So if we talk about tropism, then you can see that there are two types of tropism. First is positive tropism and second one is negative tropism. Now if we talk about positive tropism, then the growth of a plant is toward the stimuli, and if the growth of the plant is not towards the stimuli, means it is against the towards the stimuli, then if we talk about, then it is known as what? Negative tropism. Okay, now actually there are many kinds of stimulus through which the plants respond. So let us take a look through this table. Okay, so first one is the light. If the light is a stimulus, then the type of tropism is known as phototropism. Actually we are going to talk about the type of tropism in this particular part. So if the light is a stimulus, then it is known as what? Phototropism. Photo means what? Light, as you know this thing. Next, if the stimulus is gravity, then it is known as what? Geotropism. If the stimulus is chemical, then it is known as chemotropism. If the stimulus is water, then it is known as hydrotropism. And if it is touch, then it is known as thigmotropism. Now let's learn this table because it is very important and questions can be asked from this table as well. So remember this thing, if the stimulus is light, then tropism is phototropism. Stimulus is gravity, then known as geotropism. If the stimulus is chemical, then it is known as chemotropism. Next, stimulus is water, then it is known as hydrotropism. And the last one, if the stimulus is touch, then it is known as what? Thigmotropism. Okay, now we are going to start with the first type of tropism, that is known as what? Phototropism. So the response of a plant to light is known as what? Phototropism. Now if you are using the torch even towards the plant, then the leaves of the plant turns towards the light. So this is known as what? This response to the stimuli which is light. So this is known as what? The phototropism. Okay, if the plant part move towards light, it is known as what? Positive phototropism. Now what is positive phototropism? If the plant parts are moving towards the light, then it is known as what? Positive phototropism. The stem or shoot of a growing plant bends towards light, so the stem of the plant shows positive phototropism. Okay, so what happens? You can see here in this diagram even, students, that there is a light source, and what is happening? This potted plant is moving towards the light, means this stem is bending towards the way of the light. Okay, so students, that you have seen here that how phototropism works. When a plant is responding towards the source of the light, then it is known as what? Phototropism. Okay, now this is a very great diagram in which we are going to learn about that how the plants responds toward the light. Okay, now what is happening here, students? This is a light source. Okay, this is the light source. Okay, now what is happening? Root grows straight downwards. Now root does not respond towards the light. Why? Because it is the underground part of the plant, so it is not receiving any kind of sunlight. But the aerial parts of the plant are receiving the sunlight, so they grow upwards. Now what is happening? If the light source changes its direction. Okay, first the light source was here. Now the light source has come toward the right side. So it is changing its direction. So what will happen? The stem will bend towards the light source. So you can see here this stem is bending towards the light source. Okay, so stem bends towards lights and root bends away from the light. So root is bending away from the light because it is going underground. So it is showing like a negative phototropism, and this, when it is bending towards the source of light, then it is showing the positive phototropism. So this is how the phototropism occurs. Now next we are going to talk about is the geotropism. Okay, so what is geotropism, students? It is response of a plant to the gravity is known as what? Geotropism. Now what is the response of the plant towards gravity and against gravity? Actually what happens when the plant leaves, or we can say the aerial parts of the plant are going upwards, so it is against the gravity, but the roots are growing downwards, so it is towards the gravity. Okay, now if the plant part moves in the direction of the gravity, it is known as what? Positive geotropism. So what is positive geotropism? They are moving towards the gravity, like the root parts are growing towards the underground parts, so this is known as what? Positive geotropism. But if you see that aerial parts are not going towards the gravity, they are growing against the gravity, so it is facing the negative geotropism. So the roots of the plant move downwards in the direction of gravity. The roots show the positive geotropism. Now next, the stem or shoot of a plant move upward against the direction of gravity. So the stem of the plant shows what? Negative geotropism. Okay, so have you understand this thing? That each and every tropism had two sides. First is positive and second one is negative. Now if they are going towards it, then it is positive, and if they are going against it, then it is negative. Okay. Now there is an experiment to show the response of a plant to the gravity, that is geotropism. Now what we have taken here, we have kept the plant as in horizontal condition, and with which we are just keeping the plant for 2 to 3 days like this. So what happens? We see that the leaves of the plant, the stem part of the plant is growing upwards, and we see that the roots of the plant are going downwards. So the roots are growing towards the gravity, so they are known as what? Positive geotropism. But the leaves and the stem part are growing against the gravity, so they are known as what? The negative geotropism. So you can see here, students, that these roots are growing towards the gravitational pull, so they are showing the positive geotropism, and these leaves and stems are growing against the gravity, so they are known as what? The negative geotropism. Okay. Now you can see here in this diagram also that this is the stem, the root and the glass jar. Now we had taken a potted plant in a glass jar in this A picture. Now in this B picture, we are keeping that jar in a horizontal condition. Okay, see, we are keeping this potted plant in a horizontal condition. Now in the next diagram, in the C diagram, what we will see, that the root bends towards downwards and the stem bends towards upward. So this upward movement is known as what? The negative geotropism. Why? Because it is against the gravity. Okay, now if we talk about the root part, then it is what? The positive geotropism. Now why it is positive geotropism? Because it is growing towards the gravity. So this is how the experiment is conducted. You can do this experiment in your home as well. You can take a well potted plant, keep it horizontally for few days. You will see the changes inside that plant, that roots will grow downward and the stem part will grow upward. Okay. Now the third type of tropism is what? The chemotropism, means response to chemicals. Chemotropism is due to the chemical stimulus, example the growth of the pollen tube. Okay, now what is growth of the pollen tube? Actually what happens? These are just the response towards the signals. Okay, the response to the stimulus of the signals. Okay, now the response of a plant to chemical stimulus is known as what? Chemotropism. If the plant part shows movement or growth towards the chemical, it is known as what? The positive chemotropism. So as you know this thing, there are two parts, positive and negative. Towards the chemical growth, then positive, and if it is against the chemical stimulus, then negative. Okay, so the pollen tube grows towards the sugary substance, that is chemical, secreted by ripened stigma of carpel in the flower. So if you see the reproductive parts of the flower, so you can see here the pollen stigma. Okay, now what happens? Here students, the pollen tube grows toward the sugary substance. Okay, the pollen tube grows toward the sugary substance, that is chemical, which is secreted by the ripened stigma of the carpel in the flower. Okay. Now, the next type of tropism is known as what? The hydrotropism. So, let's see this thing. The response of a plant part to water is known as what? Hydrotropism. So, actually when we water the plant, the root grows underground only towards the gravity and towards the response of water as well. So, root shows hydrotropism as well, and even they show the geotropism. Okay, the positive geotropism. Now, if the plant part moves towards water, it is known as what? Positive hydrotropism. So what happens? The plant part is moving towards the water. So this is known as what? Positive hydrotropism. The root of the plant part always go towards water. So roots are positively hydrotropic. So what are roots? Actually, they are positively hydrotropic. Why? Because they are in the response towards water. They are receiving the stimulus from the water. They are responding towards it. So they are showing the positive hydrotropism. Okay. Now you can see here that there are moist soil. Okay. Now roots grows straight toward the response of the water inside the soil. Okay. Now this is dry soil and this is moist soil. So if you see here that the roots are not growing towards the dry soil, students, they are growing towards the moist soil. So they are just bending themselves towards the moist soil. So roots grow towards the water. So you can see here when the water is present, root changes its direction towards the moist soil or the water. So this is known as what? Positive hydrotropism. Now the last type of tropism is known as what? Thigmotropism. So what is thigmotropism? The climbing parts of the plant such as tendrils grows towards any support which happen to touch around that support. Now this line is totally confusing. So I want to make this thing clear that what happens, student, is there is a solid plant part like stem. Okay, consider it as a stem or a branch. Okay, now what happens? The root tendrils, okay, they just grab over it. Okay, they roll on toward the solid part of the plant. Okay, so these are what? The tendrils. Okay, so tendrils of plants are positively thigmotropic. Now why they are positively thigmotropic? Because they are just covering the solid part of the plant in a circular manner. Okay, so this is known as what? Thigmotropism. They are just taking the support of the solid part of the plant and climbing upon it so that they can show their proper growth. Okay, students. So you can see here that this is the stem tendril. Okay, now this stem tendril is growing towards the positive stem. Okay, this is the stem and this is solid, so it is just taking the support of the stem. Okay, now this is the weak stem. Now why it is called weak? Because it is taking support of the other part of the plant. Okay, now stem tendrils help to plant to combine as a support. So they can grow well by taking the support of the solid part of the plant. So this is known as what? Thigmotropism. So we learned about the 5 types of tropism that occurs inside the plants. Okay, students. Now, as we have learned about the 5 types of tropism that occurs inside the plant, so let us take a quick revision of the tropism of the plant so that you do not forget that how plant responses towards light, towards gravity, towards chemical, okay, towards water, and even they take the support of the other plant to climb up, so which is known as what? Thigmotropism. So let us take a quick revision of all the 5 types of tropism which we have studied. Okay. Now students, we are going to take a quick revision of all the types of tropism which we have learned today. So you can see that if a plant is growing, the maximum growth of the plant takes place upwards and the downward movement is towards the gravity, okay, in the response of the gravity. So you can see here that the roots are growing downwards and the aerial part of the plant, that is the stems, are growing upward. So first, if you see here, these are the kinds of tropic movement like light, gravity, contact and water source which we have studied till now. Okay, now you can see here that these are the 4 types of movement which can be seen depending upon the type of direction in which they are going. Okay, now if you see here that tropic movement towards the stimulus is to be positive. Now why it is positive? Because it is responding towards the stimulus. Like if we talk about light, then the stem of the plant or leaves of the plant are bending towards the response. Now firstly we are going to talk about the first type of tropism, that is phototropism. Okay, now in phototropism what is going to happen? That the plant will respond towards the stimulus, where the light will go, it will bend its leaves and towards it. Okay students, so you can see here that firstly we have taken the potted plant over here. Now we have just kept it in sunlight. Now after keeping it in sunlight, we see that the plant part, that is the stems and leaves, are moving towards the sunlight. Okay, the shoot grows towards the light and root grows against the light, means root is showing the negative phototropism and root shoots are showing the positive phototropism. Okay, so you can see here in phototropism there is a very amazing fact which I am going to tell you about. The telegraph plant is very amazing. Its small lateral leaflets move at a rapid speed along in an elliptical path, sampling and the intensity of the sunlight and directing the large leaf to the area of the most intensity. So what happens when there is a large intensity of light? The leaves bend thatwards. Okay, now next type of tropism is geotropism. Geotropism means towards the gravity and against the gravity. So after, if we are taking the plant in a potted way and then we are keeping it, so you can see here that the roots are growing towards the gravity and the shoots are growing against the gravity. So negative geotropism and positive geotropism can be seen inside a particular single potted plant. So you can see here in this picture also that roots are growing towards the gravity and these shoots are growing away from the gravity. Okay, so this is how the positive and negative geotropism are being coordinated. Now the next type of tropism is the Thigmotropism, which we learned about. So the tendrils get climbed up in such a way, you can see here in this diagram also, these tendrils are climbing up on this solid part of the plant for getting the proper support for their growth and survival. Okay, so this is how the Thigmotropism occurs. Now the next type of tropism is Hydrotropism, in which a plant responds towards water. So you can see here that the plant is responding towards the water. Where the moist environment is present or the water is present, the plant roots will move towards it. The plant roots will bend towards the moist environment or the water. They will respond it. So this is known as what? The positive hydrotropism. Okay. Now students, we are going to learn about the next type of movement which are shown by the plants, that are known as what? The nastic movements, or known as nasties. So let us understand this thing. The movement of a plant part in response to external stimulus, in which the direction of response is not determined by direction of stimulus, is called the nastic movement. Means the direction of the response and the direction of the stimulus is totally different from each other. So let us see this thing, how this happens. The folding up of the leaves of a sensitive plant like Mimosa pudica on touching. As the leaves of the plant of Mimosa pudica are open always. But if they senses the touch, then what happens? They just close themselves. So what is this? They are responding toward the touch. Okay. Now the opening up of the petals of dandelion flowers in morning in bright light and closing in the evening when the light falls. So what happens, students? When there is a proper supply of light toward the dandelion flower, their leaves open. But if the light fades, then what happens? The leaves gets closed. Okay. Now the closing of petals of moonflower in morning in bright light and in opening at dark when the light fades. So what happens? The closing of petals of moonflower. These are all the examples. So you have to learn the examples as well, because sometimes Questions from the example part can come in your NTSC examination. Okay students, so what happens? The closing of petals of moonflower in the morning, and in bright light and opening at dark when the light get fade. So this is just the opposite mechanism from the dandelion flower. So you can see that different kind of flowers and different kind of plants have the opposite mechanisms as well. Okay, now first we are going to discuss about the ThigmoNasty. So what is ThigmoNasty students? The non-directional movement of a plant part in response to the touch of an object is known as what? ThigmoNasty. Actually it is a non-directional movement, means it does not have any kind of direction. Okay, it can occur in any direction. So it is known as what? ThigmoNasty, and it occurs because of what? Touch. Okay, the sensitive plant has pad-like swellings called as pulvini at the base of each leaf. So what happens? Actually, if we talk about Mimosa pudica, I am taking an example over here of Mimosa pudica. It is known as what? The touch me not plant as well. So what happens? This is a plant leaf. Now this plant leaf has a pad-like swelling which is known as what? The pulvini. Okay, now this pulvini is the receptor. It is acting like a receptor of the touch. Now when this pulvini gets the receptions of a particular touch, then it is sensitive towards touch and the plant closes its leaves. Okay, now the folding up of the leaves of a sensitive plant on touching is due to the sudden loss of water from pad-like swellings known as pulvini present at the base of all the leaves of these sensitive plants, which make the pulvini lose their firmness, causing the leaves to drop and fall. So what happens students? Actually when it senses the touches, the loss of water occurs, and because of the loss of water, the leaves just close themselves to prevent the loss of water. So this is how the ThigmoNasty occurs. Okay, now leaves of touch me not plant Mimosa pudica drops rapidly when touched. It is due to turgidity of the cells at the base. Now what happens when there is a loss of water? Then turgidity occurs inside the cells, so they just close at the movement. Now here touch responses is diffused, affecting the entire leaf. The vascular strand of leaf divides the leaf into upper stable and lower sensitive part. So upper stable part and lower sensitive part is formed when a leaf senses the touch. Okay, now in normal condition both parts remain turgid and thus leaves remain erect. After touching, the leaf stimulus reaches the leaf. Okay, so what happens in normal conditions? You can see the plant in relaxed position. No leaves are being in the closed way, but when we touch it, what happens? The pulvinus is present inside it, the pulvini is present. So what happens? The loss of amount of water occurs, turgidity occurs, and because of turgidity, the leaves closes themselves. Okay. Now, leaves of touch me not plant drops rapidly when touched. It is due to the turgidity. Now students, there are two diagrams to compare the touch sensation of the Mimosa pudica. So you can see here these diagrams to show nastic movements in the leaves of sensitive plant Mimosa pudica caused by the touch. Now this is a sensitive plant Mimosa pudica. Now you can see this, that leaves are clearly opened. Okay. Now when the person is touching these leaves, they just get closed. Okay, so leaves fold up on touching with the finger. So this is how the ThigmoNasty works, and these leaves get closed because their cells become turgid after the loss of the water. Okay students, now the leaves of sensitive plant fold due to the loss of water from pulvinus at their base. So you can see here, this is a dissected view of the pulvinus of a leaf of a plant. So you can see here, this is the pulvinus. Okay, now what happens when a person is touching the leaf? So what happens? The loss of water from the base occurs. Now because of the loss of water, the turgid conditions of the cells occur, and to accomplish this turgid condition, what happens? The leaves close themselves. Okay. Now the next type of nastic movement is known as what? The PhotoNasty. So the non-directional movement of a plant part usually petals of the flowers in response to light is known as what? PhotoNasty. Because of the presence of light, the plant responds towards it, but if the petals only are responding towards the light, then it is known as what? The PhotoNasty. Now, the opening and closing of flowers in response to light or PhotoNasty are the growth movement. Now, what happens when sunlight is supplied proper to the plant? Then the flowers get opens, the petals get opened. But at the night conditions, what happens? There is no sunlight, so the petals of the flowers get closed. So this mechanism is known as what? PhotoNasty. Okay, now this is an example over here. PhotoNasty in Taracaxum officially, that is known as what? Dandelion. Dandelion is a plant. Okay, now you can see here at the day condition where proper sunlight supply is available, so flowers open themselves. Okay, each and every petal of the flower can be seen clearly. But if we see the night condition, then each and every petal gets closes. Okay, now in this condition you can see here that there is another type of plant I am taking, the moonflower. Okay, in this scientific term it is known as what? Ipomoea alba. This is the scientific name of moonflower. Now you can see here, students, during day condition this plant petals are closed, but at night conditions all the petals get open. So this is showing the just opposite mechanism towards the dandelion. Okay, so you can see here there are different kinds of plants which are showing the responses against the light also and towards the light also. Okay, students, so we are just going to see the Nastic movement video and understand it again, that how PhotoNasty and ThigmoNasty occurs. Now students, let us see the Nastic movement which occurs inside the plants. So stimulus for the Nastic movement, as I told you, there are only two stimulus. First is the contact, that is the touch from a human being, and second one is the light or heat. Okay, so you can see here, students, that if you see that different kinds of plants are present in our environment, even the insectivorous plants are present, so they also show the Nastic movement. What they do, if we talk about Venus flytrap and pitcher plant, so what they do, they just grab the insects inside them, so they are showing the Nastic movement. Next we talked about the Mimosa pudica. So before touch the leaves are totally open, but after touch the leaves get closed. Okay, the leaves fold themselves to prevent the loss of the water. Okay, now you can see here, this is the leaves of the oxalis. So leaves of oxalis in more light gets opened, but in less light they get closed. So you can see the next, if I am going to talk about the sunflower, morning glory and tulip, so they are also showing the Nastic movements and the tropic movements both. Okay, so students, let us just revise that how the Nastic movements and the tropic movement occurs inside a particular plant. So if we talk about the tropic movements, so response to directional stimuli like light, gravity, contact and water, irreversible movements and growth responses there. So you can see here that Phototropism, Geotropism, Thigmotropism, Hydrotropism. Okay, so photo means light, geo means gravity, thigmo means touch, and hydro means water. Now if we talk about Nastic movements, then they are what? The non-directional movements. Now why they are known as non-directional movements? Because they are reversible movements. Okay, now the examples are pitcher plant showing contact stimulus, mimosa contact stimulus, Venus flytrap contact stimulus, and the last one tulip, the light stimulus. Even the dandelion and the moonlight, or we can say the next plants we studied about, all they are responding towards the light stimulus. So this is how the Nastic movements and tropic movements are carried out inside a particular plant. So this is how the coordination takes place inside a particular plants. Okay students, now students, we are going to see that there is a very small assignment for you all, that is your homework of today, and you should do the analysis of this chapter what we have studied till now, that is the tropic movements and the Nastic movement which is occurring inside the plant. So this is a very small homework in which I have given you the exercise number 1 and exercise number 3 to do. So please solve all the questions which are written on my back. So students, in this lecture we have learned about how the tropic and the nastic movement occurs inside the plant. We have revised each and everything. So please do the revision, solve the module, and we will meet in the next lecture. In next lecture we are going to study about how the coordination takes place inside the humans and how the plant hormones responds to the stimuli and how the growth takes place inside a particular plant. So thank you.